Hi, my name is Mike Dillard, and this is Self-Made Man, the podcast for those who want to leave their mark on the world and create a legacy of honor, integrity, and achievement in every aspect of your life. I'm glad you're here, and once again, it is time to forge your destiny. It's Thanksgiving week here in the U.S., guys, and I cannot think of a better guest for the show than the one we have today. Now, I'm not going to tell you why. You're going to find out within the first few minutes of the show, but let's just say that if Thanksgiving is a time for gratitude, this interview is right on point. So Nick Santonastasso is 22 years old, and I got to say, this kid impresses the hell out of me. Whatever challenges you're going through in life are instantly going to be put into context today, and you're going to walk away from this interview with just an incredible amount of gratitude for everything that you have and what you are truly capable of. Attitude and how you choose to view the world and your life is everything. And Nick is just an incredible living example of that. Now, before we dive into the show, I want to make sure you guys are aware of the Black Friday sale going on right now for my copywriting course, 7-Figure Sales Presentations. As you guys have heard, if you've been listening to the show over and over again, from guys like Ryan Dice, Bedro Koulian, Andrew Frizella, Dan Locke, Patrick Bet-David, Dean Graziosi, Lewis Howes, and Russell Brunson, and especially last week's guest, Joe Schriefer, copywriting is the one mandatory skill that all of us took the time to learn, and it's the one skill that finally set us free. Without a doubt, go back and listen to those episodes. You will hear them tell you exactly what I just said. And yet, 96% of you guys responded to a survey that I sent out via email last week that you haven't taken the time to learn how to write copy that sells. So guys, here's the God's honest truth here. Until you learn how to sell and how to write copy that sells, you're going to stay stuck. You're going to be stuck exactly where you are, and I'm telling you that from my own personal experience. I don't want you to waste 5 years like I did. So what is failure in business? Well, failure in business is the result of one thing, a lack of cash flow. And cash flow comes from sales. So any business that's selling product and making money is successful. But if you can't sell, if people ignore your messages, if they ignore your emails and your ads, that's the symptom of the real problem, which is that you do not know how to sell yet. And that's what I want to help you fix. And it's the skill that I want to help you acquire once and for all, so that you can finally get the results that you want. So right now you can go to MikeDillard.com/7FSP. That is the number 7. F is in Frank, S is in Sam, P is in Paul. That stands for 7-Figure Sales Presentations. And between now and midnight on Friday, November 23rd, less than 48 hours from now, I'm going to give you guys the chance to join 7-Figure Sales Presentations at a 50% discount. So this course is basically going to teach you my personal copywriting formula that I've used over and over again to create my ads, my marketing funnels, my sales videos, and all of the webinars that have successfully converted cold traffic into buying customers automatically. So in the course, I'm going to help you write your first sales presentation line by line and word for word. That's either in a written letter form, in a video sales letter form, or in a webinar. We're going to cover all three, and I'm going to help you do every single step of the process along the way from beginning to end, from writing your script line by line to editing the videos to posting them online and every single step in between. But that 50% discount, guys, is really just the first part of this. I'm also going to put a cold $100 bill on the line. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. So when you sign up for the course, if for some reason it doesn't exceed your expectations over the next 30 days, I'm going to give you a full 100% refund and an extra $100 in cash out of my pocket via PayPal. So that means you're either going to love the course and you're finally going to master this skill and get a sales presentation that sells for you, or you're going to get all of your money back plus an extra $100 in your pocket just for giving it a shot. And then I've got one more surprise for you that kind of came out of the blue for me. And that's this. If you listened to last week's show with Joe Schriefer, who's the CEO of the most successful online publishing company in the world, Agora Financial, they did around $300 million in sales this year. You know that the key to their success was building a world-class team of copywriters. Well, Joe saw this week's promotion go out, and he hit me up and he said, "Hey, Mike, why don't you go ahead and give your new 7-figure sales presentation students who sign up this week access to our internal swipe file and copywriting book. Pardon the language, but holy shit, guys. I don't know if you realize how valuable that is, but for Joe to offer access to their internal swipe file, which is like the golden goose, the golden ticket, it's one of the most valuable assets you'll ever own as an online marketer and copywriter, to just give that away to us for free is just unbelievable. I was speechless. I honestly couldn't believe it, but he sent over the links and we've already posted them for you in the members area. So that is going to be another free bonus for you guys that's only available between now and this Friday. So take advantage of this incredible opportunity. Go learn the one skill that you need to learn to set yourself free, and be quick, because this offer, again, will close on Friday at midnight, basically a day and a half away from now. Again, you can sign up at mikediller.com/7FSP. And with that being said, please help me welcome Nick Santonastasso. Nick Santonastasso, welcome to Self-Made Man. It is an absolute pleasure to have you here today, brother. Welcome.
Thank you, bro. Grateful for the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been looking forward to this interview today because, well, there's a few reasons. You know, I've, over the past 6 months, gone through some of the biggest challenges I've gone through in my life, medically and just all kinds of stuff that I haven't really talked about yet on the podcast. I will at some point. But having gotten to know you and your story, plugging into your work, has been freaking awesome. It's just been such a huge help to me. And so I know it's going to be a massive help to so many people who are going to hear you today and your message and your story. And some of the really neat highlights that I think are awesome about your career. You're only 22 years old right now. With that in mind, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is somebody that looks up to you. And you've been shark diving with some of the coolest people on the planet, competitive wrestling, public speaking. Your track record so far at age 22 has been absolutely phenomenal. But there's one thing that people probably don't understand, because they're not familiar with you or your story, and the fact that this is an audio-only podcast, is that you're a little bit different than the average 22-year-old. And I was hoping that you could dive into your story and share that with everybody.
Yeah, definitely a little bit different. So for everyone listening, like you said, it's an audio version. So I'm 22, and so in 1996, when my mom went in for one of her late ultrasounds, they pulled up the baby on the screen, and the doctors looked at each other with this puzzled face and said, there's something wrong. And they said, well, what do you mean something's wrong? And they said, well, from the looks of it, it doesn't look like your baby's limbs are being fully developed. He's missing his legs. He looks like he's missing one arm. He might have a cleft palate. And, the list goes on. And what they later, before birth, what they diagnosed me with was Hanhart syndrome. And what Hanhart syndrome is a super rare genetic disorder that either leaves the babies with undeveloped limbs or undeveloped organs. And so at the time of my birth in 1996, I was the 12th baby in medical history that they've ever seen it happen to. And out of the 12, me being the 12th, 8 of them have passed away due to, undeveloped organs. And so basically they gave me about a 30% chance to live. And then, I survived that. Once I was born, they did tests on my organs, and the only thing that was affected were my limbs. And so to get a visual, I was born with no legs, a short right arm below the elbow. I meant, up above that. Well, I don't have an elbow on my right arm. And then my left arm is a full arm with just one finger on it. And so just super, super grateful to be here. Super grateful to be, 100% healthy, with my organs and everything.
So take us back into what it was like as a child, going through life like that.
Yeah. So, my childhood was, to be honest, was pretty normal. And I thank my parents for that, because one of the first promises they promised each other was that they were going to raise me just like the other 3. And so, I have 3 other siblings. I have 2 sisters and 1 brother, and I was the baby of the family. And basically, especially from a parent's perspective, they say, after the first one, you kind of realize how to do the second one, and then the third one, and then the fourth one. Just, the more kids you have, the easier it is. And my parents took that same approach. They sat me down and were like, Nick, the world's not going to stop for you because you're born like this. Things are going to be hard. Things are going to take, a little bit more time, but you just got to figure out how to do things your way. And so in the most polite and supportive parent way, they would, put my clothes in front of me and sit with me and say, all right, Nick, you got to figure it out. And, help me figure out ways to put my clothes on myself. And they put me in my high chair with food and say, all right, Nick, you got to figure it out. And I always tell people, by my parents doing this was the biggest advantage of my childhood. And what I mean by that is they exercised my muscle of things being hard. And, I like to paint the picture when I teach. I like to paint the picture when I speak. And so I don't think kids nowadays are exercising that muscle of, going after things that are hard or doing things that are challenging. I feel like a lot of people a lot of kids are coddled. A lot of kids are given everything. And so, like I said, my advantage was my parents basically just putting challenges in front of me and having me exercise that muscle, because it got me in the mindset rhythm of, okay, it's not can't, but how. And I think that's the approach we all need to take in life, is just like, life gets hard and hectic and we have trials and tribulations, but we need to sit back and think, how am I going to run through this wall rather than I can't, So I think I had a big advantage by my parents being who they were and raising me the way I was, by simply just saying like, yo, like, let's figure it out.
I've found that many people have a defining moment in their lives where they realize they're at a moment where they have to make a conscious decision about the story they're going to create and live by. Do you remember a specific moment back then where you had that choice to be a victim or not, and making that decision?
Yeah, and I'll give you some background and context of a situation where, maybe I wasn't able to switch from the victim to victor, so people know I'm not superhuman, I'm not Superman. Everyone goes through these little moments. There's a moment in like fourth grade where we were outside, we were playing kickball. It was recess, and so I would have a friend or a coach kick for me, and I'd run around the bases because I could run. And someone kicks the ball, and I'm running around the bases, and I'm able to get a home run. I'm able to slide into home base before the ball got to me. And once the ball got there, there was a kid in my school. I still know his name, and he was the catcher, and he said to the pitcher, how are you going to let a crippled score on you? And here I am as a a fourth grader, and I'm just like, why? Like, why? Why is he calling me that? What does that even mean? I know it's hurtful. I don't know what it means, but like, why? And I probably ended up crying and wasn't able to shake it at the time. But like you said, like, we have that choice whether we're going to become the victims or the victor of situations in our lives. And so that was a little taste of me being the victim. And then going into middle school mostly, middle school probably the most judgmental times of our lives, middle school and high school. And so I realized how different I was when I got into middle school. I realized, although there wasn't any bullying, but there was, teasing, and, I realized that I was getting pushed in a wheelchair, and because I had an aide with me in school that, kids thought I was a little bit slower when I wasn't. And I realized how different I was. And I think my defining moment was going into freshman year and realizing, like, listen, like, you're putting on a mask, and just putting on a fake smile. Like, you only have one life, you only have one body. You might as well like figure out how to play this hand to the best of your ability. And so I think it was, just the kind of like the environment of middle school and high school, and being out of shape and not having any confidence and having suicidal thoughts, and just I wanted to dig myself out of this hole. And I think my realization was realizing that no one was coming to save me but me.
And that decision changed everything, right? Like, that decision led you to who you are today, what you've accomplished, and you could have very easily made a different one that would have led to a very different life. So,
yeah, absolutely. People would have been okay with me not doing anything with my life, and being sad, and they would have been like, oh well, he's like that. He has no legs and one arm. He should be sad and all this stuff. And just it just clicked to me, like, after me being a victim mentality of like, why me? Why do I have to go through these challenges? Like, why am I born like this? I was just kind of searching out for my why, and trying to figure out, like, why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing on this earth? In this situation. And that's when I wanted to find a sport. I wanted to find a sport or an extracurricular activity that I could be with my friends more. It would instill more confidence in me. And so at the time, my best friend Dan, we're still best friends to this day. He wrestled his whole entire life, but he decided to be a bowler his freshman year. I don't know why, but he decided to be a bowler his freshman year. And he was like, Nick, you should try bowling. It's pretty easy. All you got to do is roll the ball down the lane. You get to eat cheese fries when you come back. You could probably do it. And so my freshman year, I decided to be a bowler. And then, I realized that, I wanted something much more. I wanted something more, physically. I wanted to push myself physically, mentally. And, and I think this also came from not ever believing that I could be labeled as an athlete. I was never part of a team. I didn't think I could play. I can't play soccer, basketball. There are all these sports that, I don't think I could do. But wrestling was one that I felt that I would be able to do. And, my older brother, who's about 6 years older than me, he wrestled, for my same high school. And, I'd always just look up to wrestlers. I always organically just thought they were the most cool, superstar athletes ever, the bad to the bone. And so I wanted to figure out a way where I could become a wrestler. And so my sophomore year, all my best friends went back to wrestling, and they were all stud wrestlers. And, they were like, Nick, you always try new things. Why don't you try wrestling? And I was like, I can't, my arm. And what I mean by that, for those of you listening, is my right arm used to be 5 inches longer than it is now, basically cut off right above the elbow. And my bone was growing faster than my skin. So it was super sensitive, and I couldn't really touch it on things. And, if I would have hit my arm hard enough, my bone would have came through my skin. And so, at first wrestling wasn't, even a choice or even a factor. I was like, oh, I can't wrestle. And then, like I said, I started marinating on this thought of, being called an athlete and being labeled as a wrestler and being, doing the most physical and mental sport. People couldn't take that away from me. That would make me feel good about myself. And so I came home one day and I said, Mom and Dad, I want to be a wrestler. And like I said, they supported me in everything and anything I wanted to do. But this was a little bit different. And they were like, Nick, wrestling's the most physical sport. God forbid you hit your arm, your bone comes through your skin. What are you going to do then? And, here I am, a 16, 17-year-old kid. And I said, can we cut it off? Can we do something about it? And, they said, what do you mean? I said, yeah, like, can we take care of it? It's not serving me. I think if I'm able to get my arm taken care of, that I'll be able to become a wrestler. And the funny thing is, I mean, it's not funny, but I never told my parents about that low, dark place I was in, because I knew that energy was contagious, and I didn't want to, put that toxic energy out there. So that's why I put the mask on, because I knew energy was contagious. So I just told my parents that this was something that I really wanted to do, really wanted to be a wrestler, and, my arm wasn't serving me. And so, with a couple hours of persuasion, I was able to persuade my parents my sophomore year to schedule an amputation. And what they did was they lasered 5 inches of my bone off, and they did a skin graft. So basically they pulled extra skin from up on my shoulder over my bone, so I'm able to beat it up. And, so I'm able to do physical activities with it. And so I finished that surgery, and I tried out for my wrestling team. But, that's what I always tell people. There's so many lessons behind that story. But the one of them is, whatever you're focusing your energy on, like whether you want to become a wrestler, whether you want to become a better mother, a better father, a better businessman, better salesman, like whatever you're doing, like you need to hone in. You need to focus all your energy on that, or you're going to sell yourself short if you don't give it your all. And so, that's what I ask people, like, what are you willing to do? What are you willing to do just for an opportunity to pivot, just for an opportunity to get out of a situation that you don't even want to be in? Like, what are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to give up for something that you truly love or something that you truly want to do?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I have to ask, if you had to sum up your attitude towards life in a word or a sentence, how would you sum it up?
Why not? Why not? Why not? Why can't I do that? Why can't I be a rapper? Why can't I be a DJ? Why can't I be a speaker? Why can't I be, the biggest speaker in the world? Why can't I be a bodybuilder? It's why not? And when you come from that mentality, it's just like, well, the world is yours, because like you said, the only limits you have are the ones you put on yourself. We're handicapped by the thing that's, in our head, our brain. And so, I go throughout my life with this whole thing of why not? Why can't I be a DJ? Why can't I take over the world? Why can't I be on GQ, cover? Why can't I be a professional model? It's just, I think the majority of people, their outlook on life is disempowering. Jeff Hoffman talks about, the majority of not only entrepreneurs, but human beings, we start with can't. When people say, like, I want to do something, immediately people are like, well, you can't do it because this, and this is hard. And, how empowering is that? It's disempowering. And so I choose to, live my life with those two empowering words of why not?
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm, reminded of the experience I had with Tony Robbins years ago at Date with Destiny. And the big part of that event is empowering people to reframe their stories essentially around the thought of, or the fact that things happen for you instead of to you.
Absolutely.
right? So that was his big message,
and as well.
yeah, and obviously you're living that. So it's been amazing. What have been some of the most difficult challenges that you've had to go through? Because you're obviously, killing it in many ways. Career wise, attitude wise, just you're doing phenomenally successful at everything you're doing. But what are the most difficult things that you've gone through and some of the downtimes that you've had?
Yeah. So, middle school and high school, right? Like girls are important, guys are important, girls want guys want girls, or whatever way you go. I'm not judging. But, for me, it's just, I saw friends with girls and I saw the way, girls treated them and, people loving on other people. And I never got that feminine energy. I never got, much of girls loving on me, in middle school and high school. I think my high school, throughout the 4 years, I've only had two girlfriends. Not like saying that's not a lot or anything, but it's just like I didn't receive much love for females, and so they were probably my biggest trigger for suicidal thoughts. Because like we're humans, we want love, we want to be loved on, and I wasn't getting that, and humans were the only species where we can think a thought and make ourselves extremely happy, and think a thought and make ourselves extremely pissed off or in a dark place, and so one thing goes bad with a female or one thing said about me, and just these thoughts start taking over my brain, and that I'm disgusting, and this physical differences is everything, and I can't walk a girl to her locker, I can't open I can't hold her books for her, I can't hold her hand. What happens if she doesn't want to hold my hand because I have one finger? Like all these thoughts going through my head, and so girls were a huge trigger in my suicidal thoughts. That's one challenge I went through. Another challenge, I still go through these things. I just want to put that out there so people know, like, I still struggle. Like I'm not Superman. Like I'm not superhuman. And so we're always building on our mindset. We're always building on our character. And so I just want everyone to take a sense of comfort that we all struggle and we all go through these things each and every day. And so, like you said, you're listening, you're so successful in this and this and that, but I promise, like, I still have low days. I still struggle. I still have really dark days. And it's just like, I'm still struggling with the same thing that people are struggling with every day. So I want people to take a sense of comfort in that. Another challenge for me was when I was about 14 or 15, I was able to find a company that was able to fit me and work with me with prosthetic legs. But at this point, I was out of shape, and, I didn't know anything about the way the body moves and what goes into play with people standing up. And so what I mean by that is when you guys are born with full bodies running around and walking around, you're already establishing and building up your lower back, your obliques, your abs, all these things that help you stand upright, which you may not know because you're so used to it. But I got into these prosthetic legs, and physically it was something that I couldn't do. I can only walk with a walker. I could walk very slow, and, I wanted to run. And so, it finally clicked to me after I started bodybuilding, later on in my life, that like, oh, I wasn't strong enough. But those are probably the two biggest challenges that I can come up, immediately. It was like girls. And then the fact that I couldn't move these 7.5 pound, legs, because I just wasn't in the physical state to do so. And at that time, like I said, I didn't realize that that I wasn't strong enough. So I was like, damn, I just can't do this. And so those are probably the two biggest challenges in my life that I went through. But still with the girls, right? It still happens to this day. And I know, a lot of guys are out there watching, and just like take a sense of comfort in that, even, from the outside, like you said, when you're introing me and you're saying I do all these amazing things, that I still struggle with the same things that, we all do.
And so walk us through your thought process on how you change your thoughts when you find yourself in that moment. What do you think?
Yeah. So with the girls, I actually had a conversation. I had a conversation with a buddy of mine, and, I was talking about kind of like my frustrations with girls. And this was back in New Jersey a couple years ago. And, talking about reframing things, this was way before Tony, or way before I knew about reframing. And my buddy said, listen, bro, like, if girls don't want to, be with you, or girls don't want to love on you because of the way you physically are, then your physical self is an authentic filter. And those aren't the type of girls that you want to be around anyway. And you know how that was like just a relief off my shoulders. It was a weight off my shoulders when you put an empowering meaning behind that. And it's true, if people don't want to mess with me, if people don't want to hang out with me, if people don't want to love me because of my physical differences, then so be it. You're not the type of people that I want to be around anyway. So that was really empowering for me.
On the suicide piece, how deep did you go down that rabbit hole? Was that a fleeting like a fleeting thought over a day or two, or, like Tim Ferriss talks about his story where he went really deep down that rabbit hole and came very close to it. But what was that experience like?
Yeah, so I think, it didn't just go away. There was, there was a time, I'm 22. There was a time, right after my 22nd birthday where, I contemplated, taking my life and figuring out, like, what am I doing? And it's just self-talk, man. It's just self-talk and self-awareness and realizing like the state you're in. And so, in middle school and high school, it got to the point where, those thoughts would come into my head. I would cry in the shower because people didn't know I was crying, or I'd cry in my room at night, and have these thoughts. But, I always thought about my family, and I always thought about my friends and myself. And I knew how much bad energy I would leave behind if I did that. And so I never, attempted, but it was always these thoughts that would consume me and leave me in this dark place. And so, even to this day, I have dark days, but like I said, it's all about self-awareness and realizing you're in that state, and then self-talking yourself out. And so, like I said, the human thing where we can think a thought and make ourselves happy, and make a thought and think ourselves sad, like we need to be our biggest cheerleaders. And so in that low time, I'm switching all this negative talk with positive affirmations, just like, rather than I'm discussing, I am confident, and, girls, if people want to love on me for who I am, and what I look like, and my authentic self, and that's who I bring. And just basically just talking yourself up with positive affirmations. That's all it is. And, it takes some time. And so, in those low moments, what I tell people is you need to sit in the guck, like you need to sit in that muck for a little bit and realize how it feels, and be like, wow, I don't like feeling like this. I don't like thinking like this. I don't like having my state like this. And so, like, then you sit in it for a little bit and you realize, okay, I want out. And then you start talking yourself out of it. But I think a key is kind of sitting in the guck for a little bit, sitting in there and realizing, like, man, I don't want to feel like this anymore.
Yeah, it's such a critical skill for people to learn and be aware of, because the way the brain works, the more repetition you have when it comes to the thoughts and the emotions and the feelings you have, the deeper essentially those pathways are created. And if you think about it like a river flowing through a canyon, right? If that water's been flowing through there for 1,000 years, it's going to be deep effing canyon, and changing the path of that water is going to be extremely difficult. And it's the exact same way that the brain works. So catching that early and instantly and redirecting it to a more positive thought, attitude, emotion, outcome is the best thing that somebody can do, rather than ruminating on it for weeks, months, or years, because it just gets so much more difficult to reroute it once you're at that stage. So
yeah, it's just like reconfiguring your computer.
Yeah,
it's absolutely. Just like your mind is a computer, and we're primed. We're primed from our environment and our childhood and the way we raise, and there's trigger moments and all these things. So just those who are listening, if it's not easy at first, trust me, it's not easy. It's going to take some time of reprogramming, especially if you're programmed a certain way. So, just keep going on that journey, and keep consistent, right? Because we want to reprogram it, and that takes consistency.
Who have you studied? Who do you look up to for inspiration when it comes to learning these skill sets and these mindsets? Yeah,
so I've done my first taste of personal development was Grant Cardone. And so I read the 10X rule, and I read Be Obsessed or Be Average. That was kind of like my first kick into, personal development. And then, like I said, some Tony. I went to two Tony Robbins events, and I'll be the first one to say there's a lot of things that I love about Tony, and there may be some things I don't agree with, but I've never seen a man speak for 16 hours straight and captivate an audience. And, so from me being a speaker and learning and being a student of the craft, I respect that. He's just a machine. And so studying Tony, Tony does a lot of NLP as well. And I've been looking at some courses for NLP. Ed Milet, Ed Milet's been a friend and a mentor of mine, and you really look up to that guy. And he's highly tied with Tony as well. They've been best friends for 25 years. So just, what I do is I just look at the industry. I look at whatever industry I'm in, and I say, who's crushing it? Who are the greats, and how can I learn from them? And, with our very, very, very skilled networking skills, we're able to maneuver and get into, rooms with these people. And so like I said, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just find out who's crushing it and learn from them, learn what they're doing right and learn from what they're doing wrong. And, if you can't get to them immediately, find their books or watch their videos on the internet. There's so many ways we can learn now, especially with the internet. And so I kind of just, look at my industry and find out who's crushing it and start, watching those guys.
One of the messages that I've heard you talk about that I think is really important, because if you're going to put yourself out there, if you're going to put yourself in a leadership position, and if you're going to speak from stage, there's a certain amount of self-love that you have to have in order to do that successfully. And can you talk a little bit about how you really fostered that view towards yourself?
Yeah. I think it comes gradually. I don't think there's one defining moment that like one day I wake up and I'm just like, I think I'm the greatest. It's just, you build this character and you build this character through, little goals, little milestones in your life. And, Ed talks about it too, but the way to build confidence and when I'm on stage, right, I'm pouring out confidence because like when you're on stage, it's energy. Like it's a transfer of energy. So if people think, I'm nervous, you're going to see it and you're going to feel it and the energy is not going to be on point. But if I come in confident and I say everything with conviction, people are like, damn, this kid's on point. And so, building confidence, I think, like I said, I was a kid that had zero confidence, but what you do is you set little milestones, you set these little goals, whether that's, waking up 30 minutes earlier, whether that's eating healthy 5 of the 7 days and getting that cheat meal on the one day. Like when you accomplish these little goals, you not only mentally applaud yourself, you physically applaud yourself, and you realize that your relationship within you is the only relationship that you need to work on. So many people are trying to work on, building relationships with other people when they have work to do on themselves. And so by you completing these little goals and mentally applauding yourself, you're building a relationship within yourself that's so good that you don't care what anyone else thinks of you. You become emotionally invincibility. You know who you are. You know your work ethic. When you say things are going to get done, they get done. And you sculpt yourself into the person you're supposed to be, the person that's loving on themselves, the person that's super confident, whatever room they walk into or roll into. It's just like you built this person. And so I've built this person where, when I'm on stage, it's just confidence and conviction because everything I say, transform my life. And so, I think it's just, like I said, it's all about coming back to that relationship you have within yourself. And, if you don't have that relationship within yourself, then just start working on it and start working on it by doing these little tasks or, doing little things that make you feel progress, because humans, we love the feeling of progression. We love the feeling of moving forward. And so if you're in a slump, if you're in a rut, and you're like, man, I can't get out of it. I always tell people, do one thing. Do one thing today that is going to evolve you into a better human being. Do one thing today that is going to make you into a better person, whether that's reading a book, whether that's doing yoga, whether that's going to the gym, but something that is going to make you feel better. And you're going to get a little bit of a pep in your step and you're going to gain momentum. But how you start that momentum is starting with one thing that's going to help you progress in life.
The easiest thing that I've found in the world to change your state and to really start the day off in a positive way, no matter where you're at, especially if you're in a pretty tough situation, just get in the shower in the morning, whatever your morning routine is, wake up out of bed, just sit in the bed and just smile for a minute. Like that's it. Just sit up tall, smile, think about something to be grateful for. The fact that you woke up is enough usually. And that's really it. And if you do that, it'll make a radically big impact on the rest of your day, because if you're waking up in a place of pain or fear or regret, whatever it may be, that's just going to set the tone for the rest of your day. And guess what? You're not going to be very productive. You're not going to be creative. You're not going to get the results that you want. But if you just sit up and you'll smile for a minute, it'll literally dump a bunch of serotonin and dopamine into your system. That's going to make you start to feel good. You're going to start having more positive thoughts, and it's just going to completely reframe the rest of your day. And it's something that's completely free that every single one of us can do every single morning in 60 seconds or less. So that's something that I found has been really helpful personally.
Absolutely. And I think just, especially in the time that we live in, is just like, life is hectic, right? Like people are hectic. We tend to go through the motions of life. Like we get into this little system and these little, just like you wake up and everything's systemized. Like you wake up and you immediately look at your phone and all these different things, and people just stop to forget. Like, wow, man, I woke up today, and wow, like I could walk outside and get hit by a bus. Like I should be thankful that I'm alive right now, and that when I go to sleep, my heart is still beating. Like I just think that with like computers and technology and everything, that our attention is just everywhere, and we need to take those first 10, 20, 30, whatever it may be, minutes in the morning, rather than rolling over and checking the emails, checking the phones immediately, is just like you said, just sitting there and smiling and be like, man, I got another one.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you change anything if you could snap your fingers and have been born completely normally? Would you do that?
No, I wouldn't change anything because, although I know that, like, if I was full bodied, I'd probably, I'm a workaholic anyway. Like I like grinding and I like go, go, go. And so I know I'd figure out a way, but I know for a fact that I wouldn't have the impact. I wouldn't have the reach. I wouldn't have the outlet that I do, and I wouldn't have the ability, the superpowers of what people call it. I wouldn't have this if I wasn't born like this. And so, I kind of just, the way I believe is that I was put on this earth. I knew this was going to happen. My soul knew this prior of me coming into earth, and it knew that I could handle it, and it knew that I could take these tools and give them to people. And so, I wouldn't change it, because like I said, we wouldn't be talking. I wouldn't be touring China. I wouldn't be able to impact all these millions of people if I was, born, normal. And so I'm just super grateful that, I realized that the things that I thought were the most disgusting and negative about me turned out to be my biggest empowerments, my biggest tools of influences.
Yeah, it's awesome. Again, it just comes back to the story you choose to tell about yourself in your life. And the choice is
Yeah.
yours. You're the author of your story, and that's the biggest epiphany people can have, and it's just unbelievably powerful. Speaking of stories, what does the story for your life look like over the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah. Like I said, going back to that why not thing. And so for the next 5 to 10 years, 5 years, taking over speaking. I'll take over speaking and take over the personal development. One of my goals is we start our China tour in December. This will be my first time going to China, but in 2 years, my goal is to sell out the Beijing Olympic Stadium, which is 100,000 people in China. So, I'm taking over personal development, taking over, mindset. I want to help the kids. I want to help those kids that were in, my shoes per se, that, were suicidal, that didn't have confidence, all that stuff. I want to help these kids because right now suicide rate is skyrocketing, mental illness is skyrocketing. And so definitely want to help there. Also, I've been learning how to, believe it or not, I've been learning how to DJ. And, my whole life I've been a huge fan of singing. I've been a huge fan of rapping. And so I've been writing on the side. We'll be producing things. But my plan is to do everything, to be honest, taking over the modeling industry, because right now, even in modeling, we're getting to the point where they're starting to accept more different people. And, one of the things that I go into the modeling industry with the message of is like embracing our differences and realizing that the most attractive thing you could be is different. And so, to be honest, the next 5, 10 years, 20 years, I'm here to just shake up the world and shake up every industry that I touch, because, I just want to show people that regardless of what hand life has dealt us with, that, we got to play it to the best of our ability, and we can, do whatever we want as long as, you truly believe it and you have that vision that pulls you, and, that the only person, that is going to achieve your goals is you, and that you don't got to worry about the outside noise and, the haters, the naysayers, because we all have them. I just literally want to take over every industry, like The Rock, like The Rock did. The Rock is in every industry, taking over the world.
It's just I'm sitting here and I'm wanting to ask the people who are listening to the show, because I'm calling myself out as well here, but like, are you ready to drop your excuses? Right? Whatever excuse you have, it's complete bullshit. Like, it's just an excuse, and it's just a story that you can drop today, and you're just living proof of that, which is just amazing. So I have to ask, why China?
Yeah, so I got contacted by an exclusive agent in China who is actually working with a lot of speakers over there as well. And the thing about China is why it fires me up the most is because China I think they're 100 years behind on the way they look at disabled people and the way they parent kids. And so, for example, I heard that there's not many, wheelchair ramps in China. Like it's not very accessible. Like they're still behind, just like how America was, 10, 20 years ago, where, disabled people were kind of shunned. I'm going to blow their minds, and I want to go over there and show them, like, that, like, regardless, like, there's so much impact that can be made, and disabled people, like, they aren't less, that they can do things, but also help them parent their kids and help them instill the right, tools and tricks, like we've been talking about throughout this podcast, like the reframing and the gratitude and all this stuff. Like, I want to instill that into them because they're like 100 years behind. And so I'm really passionate about that. And I know that I can basically, shift the culture, shift a whole country over there. And also the cool thing is that they go nuts over people that bodybuild. And who's a bodybuilder? I'm a bodybuilder. And so, I'm like this perfect unicorn, like this perfect, beautiful storm that I'm going to go in there and just blow their minds. And so I'm extremely excited about China.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's super cool. Yeah, from the people I've talked to and the study that I've done around China is that the one area of improvement I think that culture needs is a bit of empathy. From what I've seen, they're not a very empathetic, people or culture, and obviously that's a very big, broad label to put on an entire country of a couple billion people. But that's just the way that they are. That's the way that culture is, and so I think that's amazing because I think you are the perfect ambassador for that. So super, super exciting. You've also got your first book coming out. What was it like to go through that process?
Yeah, it was pretty cool, right? Because one of my limiting beliefs was like I was never good at school. I was never smart enough, and so for me to like look at a book and say that I wrote a book is pretty awesome. And so this book it's Victim to Victor: How to Overcome the Victim Mentality to Live the Life You Love. And so basically, it's 15 personal stories, lessons, and applications on how the reader can cultivate this victorious mindset. And so, I didn't want people to just have a book. I wanted them to, work on themselves. And so strategically, after every chapter, we asked the right questions for people to really dive deep and self-reflect on themselves and ask themselves what they got going on. And so this is also a good tool for parents and kids to, hold each other accountable, whether that's for the gratitude or whether that's to go through the books together, and answer each other's questions and reflect on each other's answers. But like I said, I wanted to be much more than a book. I wanted to be, long lasting change. I just didn't want, read a book and then put it away. I want people to work on themselves. And so it's been a pretty amazing journey. And what's pretty cool is they're going to be able to translate my book in China. And so we'll be selling, a bunch of books in Chinese. And so it's just right. It's just super cool to give people another tool that, I know that can help transform their lives.
Yeah, that's awesome. And correct me if I'm wrong, but through your speaking engagements and the book and everything else that you do from a business perspective at age 22, you've already hit, the $1 million mark. If my research has been correct, right?
What was that?
Building $1 million business.
Oh, $1 million business. No, right now. So we created the keynote speaking company last October. And so right now, I landed a magazine for Forbes on entrepreneurship, but right now it's six figures. So not 1 million, but we basically created a six-figure business in under a year. And so, I'm going to be super transparent. I'm 22 and I'm still learning how to do business. I'm still learning how to be a CEO. I'm still learning how to lead. And so I'm just, like I said, I'm just super grateful to be busy, have things on my schedule and have things going on.
Yeah, that's amazing.
But soon we're working on that.
That's awesome, man. Super cool. I remember when I was 22 and failing my ass off and, and getting beat up by the life's lessons that I needed to learn at that time. And so you're way ahead of where I was at that point in my life, which is just amazing.
Thank you, brother. But real quick, just like a lot of people say that, and I just want to talk straight to the viewers real quick. Is just like, but realize, like, don't ever compare your journey to other people's journey. That's one of the things that I was a victim of. I've always was like, man, well, that kid's 23 and he's got more money than me or more successful. Like, you have your time. Like it's not a sprint. It's a race. I mean, it's a race, if that makes sense, right? That's the term. It's not a sprint. It's not marathon. A sprint. It's a marathon. Yeah. And so just like, don't compare, just wherever you're at, like, don't beat yourself up by where other people are at. And that's a big piece of advice, because I did that myself. And so I just wanted to put that out there real quick.
Yeah, I mean, we all do, right? And the only thing that does is leaves you stuck. It leaves you stuck on, focusing on somebody else, other people, what they're doing, and you're sitting there staring at it, and maybe you're studying it a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's preventing you from focusing on what you need to be doing, the action you need to be taking, the work that you're passionate about, the people that you can impact. And the longer you sit there on Instagram and, everywhere else, just watching other people, the less work you're actually getting done and the less impact you're actually making. So, I've noticed myself over the past year falling into that trap. So literally in the last month, I've deleted Facebook off my phone, deleted Twitter off my phone. Instagram's the last thing I've got on there. And I haven't missed it. I haven't missed it a single minute. And it's just really helped me get back into focusing on what I need to do and what I want to do and the impact that I want to make. And so if you find yourself in that position, man, just turn it off, delete it. You are not obligated to sit there and expose yourself to that stuff if you find that it's not supporting your goals and what you want to accomplish. So,
absolutely.
So I have to ask here real quick. You've also got some absolutely amazing parents who, man, just are inspirations in and of themselves in the way that they raised you. And I believe your mom's writing a book now as well, or just did, correct?
Yeah. So, I wanted to show my parents that they're the superheroes for, cultivating that mindset. I'm just the offspring. Yeah. And so I was able to push my mom, and, her book's going to be released. We're still strategically planning on the launch date, but it's called Born to Break the Barriers: How we raised our adaptive child in a handicapped world. And so it's kind of like my parents' perspective, like the parents' insight, the parents' perspective on how they raised me.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So that's pretty cool as well.
I can't wait to. I can't wait. In fact, I'd love to have them on the podcast whenever the time is right to talk about it. That'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. We'll talk about that after.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got an 8-year-old, and fortunately, he's happy and healthy, and at the same time, like the approach that your parents took is very rare, and the wisdom that they had at the time around raising you was just incredibly rare, and I can't wait to read it. And I think it's just going to help so many freaking people who are in a situation that they were in when you were being born, right? So they clearly made all the right decisions and had a lot of wisdom behind it. So I think it's really cool.
Yeah, they went against the grain, of all things, and especially at a time where it was either abortion or institutionalized, and they were like, no, like the whole world's gonna know who my son is and what he's capable of doing. So yeah, they're the superheroes for sure.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, brother, this has been a fantastic opportunity to get to know you and to share your story with our audience here. I can't wait to pick up a copy of the book. Can't wait to read your mom's book. Where can people go to connect with you? Where's your main channel? I believe it is Instagram.
Yeah.
And then where can they go to either maybe even book you for a speaking engagement or to pick up a copy of the book, obviously?
Yeah. So on all my social medias, it's Nick Santonastasso. But if you type in Nick and then space Santo, Santo, it'll be the guy with the really long last name. That's me. And then my website is booknicksanto.com. So booknicksanto.com. And that's the main website where you can find, more information about me, get in contact with myself and my team immediately, and all that good stuff. And then my book's on Amazon, and then my mom's book will be released on Amazon once we figure out that launch date, and maybe we'll get them on the podcast and we'll drop it on that date too. We'll see.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Super cool, brother. Well, this has been it's been an honor. It's a pleasure. You are a true inspiration to me. So this has been amazing, guys, gals. If you're listening to this and you haven't had a chance to dive into Nick's story better, pick up a copy of the book, connect to him on Instagram, and I promise you, you'll be very, very, very glad that you did. So, brother, thank you for the time today. This has been great.
Appreciate you, my man. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, guys, gals, thank you so much, as always, for listening. Thank you for the comments. If you learned something from this interview today, which I'm sure that you did, hit up myself and hit up Nick and let us know. Your feedback is really what drives this show and what inspires me to continue to do it for 3 years running now. And so your comments really do make a big difference, and they're very much appreciated. So thank you so much, and we'll see you guys next week. Talk to you soon.